you here. Thank you so much.
Aww.
We have a lot of students in the room. We have another special guest in the room who I'll introduce in just a moment. But I want to start off by introducing you. So for those of you who do not know, SATAR'RA is an artist, a songwriter, producer, and conjure woman, and a Berklee College of Music alumna, and you're currently based in Los Angeles. She recently came out with a single that is fire called Oops, which is available on all streaming platforms. So definitely check that out. And we're so happy to have you. So I just want to say hello, see how you're doing before we off.
Oh, I'm good. Hi, Roger. I saw your face and it made me happy. I know that you're probably going to be like, hello.
How are you?
Yeah.
But
good. Back?
I know. I was going to say, I know he's going to get like a proper introduction, but that's the homie. So I was like, my heart. It's so nice to see you and to see all of y'all. I'm good. LA is still, we're on phase 1 lockdown again.
Yes.
I'm getting very cozy in my house. I'm getting very comfortable inside. But other than that, I'm good. I've been busy. I've been working a ton.
Awesome.
So it's kept me occupied. But I'm excited to be here with y'all because it's always nice to be back in Berklee things. It feels like home. I was excited.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you, and I can't wait to ask you some questions, hear what you've been working on, all of that. I saw some visuals come out, so I'm excited to talk about that too. Before we get started, I just want to acknowledge we have President Roger Brown in the building, who's joining us to be a participant in the discussion and wants to say a couple of words to the students. I know that usually we'd be in person around this time next week for the scholarship concert for our students, and you'd see him on stage there. But this time around, we get a different personal moment. So Roger, go ahead if you want to say some words to the students. We're excited to have you.
Well, thanks for having me, and it's great to see all your faces, and I hope you're having a terrific summer. We love having you on the physical campus, but given that we couldn't do that, we thought we would push ahead anyway. So at some point, I'd love to hear how your program is going and what it's like to do it remotely. I really wanted to be here in part because SATAR'RA and I go way back, and she was a student leader like no other on our campus. And her ability to envision a better future and organize people around that and pull people together, hold people like me accountable. She was very, very good. So I've said that to so many students, like, here's the roadmap for how you become an activist. And on top of that, she can play the heck out of the bass and sing and write and produce and all those other things. So it's good to see you here, SATAR'RA, and thank you for taking time to do this. So at some point, I don't know, Sam, if we're going to have a chance, but I'd love to maybe get just a few minutes back from the students. I know they want to hear SATAR'RA, and I want to get out of the way so that can happen. But it would be fun just to hear what it's like doing this.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a Q&A portion at the end, so we can definitely implement that in. So yeah, we'll talk about that then. For now, I'm going to segue into our discussion portion with SATAR'RA. So just want to kick it off. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey as an artist, as well as an activist?
Ooh, okay. How do I begin? Okay, I'm SATAR'RA. I was born in Ohio, but grew up in Atlanta. And so for me, when I think about my art, I'm always thinking about my family and my history and kind of the ways that I came to be from my roots. In the spiritual portion of my life, I'm an ancestral diviner and a conjure woman. And so that was kind of something that was always happening in my interactions at Berklee, but really after graduation came into fruition and kind of put together all the pieces. But I think that for me, my work has always been centered around the Black experience, the Black artistic experience, and even more focused, the Black female experience. So really myself. I think when people ask me what I do, I'm like, I get to be myself professionally, and which is a gift. And I hope that like by doing it, I can extend that gift to other folks. But myself looks like this kind of blend of production, writing, activism. I was a bass principal at Berklee. My nails are cute now, so sorry, Roger. We may just be on the cute nail train forever. Y'all will get some Moog out of me though, because we love synthesizers. So you'll still get low end, but maybe not just like this. But Berklee was really the space in which, coming from this kind of neo soul vibe in Atlanta as an artist, because my aunt managed a bunch of artists in Atlanta. My uncles were in a funk band called Zapp and Roger Troutman. So being on the West Coast, that's really interesting to see kind of how their legacy has played out. And then, so the music portion was always like this funk, hip hop, R&B, jazz space that led me to Berklee and studying a little bit more intensely. I always grew up in a house of activists. I spent like my summers at Highlander Center, or always in performing arts programs centered around Black youth. I performed at the National Democratic Convention when I was little. So for me, it was like activism and art were always intrinsically tied. And then on the spiritual end of things, I come from like these Southern Black folks whose entire conception of a spiritual reality involves all of this kind of African-centered mysticism, what we would call mysticism. And so when I graduated Berklee, when I was in Berklee, I was kind of pulling cards for friends on the low, really all throughout high school. You had a problem, I was the person who was like, let me look at that and just see, right? And I actually graduated and I did my master's in Valencia, which was dope. And then after Valencia, and really even in my time in Berklee, I was having all of these really intense spiritual experiences, which I can also fully attribute to some of the, Roger, you were saying like my ability to see a better future. And now really working in spiritual traditions, it makes sense because I see professionally. That's what I do, is I look at people and I go, okay, what's going on in your life? What's going on in my life? And how can we project this forward? And so always doing that as kind of like a side gig, and then having those conversations with friends, Black folks looking to reconnect with their own spiritual selves. And then after I graduated Berklee, I was touring with this Black female rock band, and we ended up having a tour stop at NAMM, just like with, I want to say we were with Ernie Ball, but I was there in California. I was only supposed to be there for 3 days, and I got really, really sick. And it was like, you know, where they say like you're like spiritual awakening, dark night of the soul, all the drama when you see spiritualists and they're like, and then I almost died. Like we did that. So we did the near death thing in the hospital, and the doctors came in and they were like, hey, we need your advance directives. And it was in that moment that I think I realized like, oh, they're letting me know that I might die. Like it was the first time that had really clicked. I was maybe 23, 24. I've been in LA. I'm 26 now, so I've been in LA 2 years. So I was probably turning 24. But I remember being like, oh, y'all are saying that I may not make it through this. And it just knew that it was super important for me in that moment to be fully expressed and to be honest, which I'm going to be real, 2 or 3 years ago was kind of scary because I did not know that there was going to be this big spiritual awakening around really Black spiritual practice as a whole. Like what we're seeing with Beyonce with Black is King, and kind of all of the trickling that she did in with Lemonade, even before that. And really for those of us who are familiar with African traditional practice, we could see it in her earlier projects, but no one could have like foreseen, which is funny to say even as a psychic, that this was going to be such a big thing. And so always doing my social justice work, always doing my activism, and taking spiritual work clients on the side. Moving to LA, getting a reading from a dear friend who actually switched places with me, used to live in the Bay and now lives in Atlanta. And when she read me right after graduation, this was actually before I got sick, she said, oh, you're a conjure doctor. And I said, yeah, Georgia, cool. And she said, no, like professionally. And I felt like my whole body like tense up, because for some reason I felt like I couldn't have both. And I was like, I know that I did not go to school for 5 years to do something that I have been doing my whole life and could have stayed in Georgia to do. And I was like, I'm a musician. And she was like, no, for sure. But the resources and the money and the platform for your work is going to come through your spiritual work. And I just brushed her off for a little bit and was like, yeah, whatever you say, girl. And then lo and behold, here I am 2 years later, standing in a place where I do those things together interchangeably, and they hold hands, and that's really new and weird and dope. So that is my journey to what I do. I hope that answered it.
Wow, no, that more than answered it. That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And to that point, or in that same vein, I want to hear about how that, embracing that part of your journey, or where you are right now, has impacted the way you interact with your music, your musical practice. How is your songwriting? What's your process as an artist and a spiritualist, and how do those things go hand in hand in your musical practice?
I love that question. I think we were playing Civil Right earlier, and that song has come back around, I think, just given all of the times. And I want to say that for me, Civil Right was kind of my last attempt at like speaking to people outside of my community, or like trying to address a system of whiteness. I think for me, I have taken in my current artistic projects, like the more Toni Morrison approach, which is when they say like, why do you write music about Black people? Like when people say, what kind of music do you make? I'm like, I make Black girl music. That's what I make fundamentally, because that's who I am. And so with this latest release, Oops, which is a rap single, because I grew up rapping and singing primarily kind of interchangeably. Like I used to rap battle boys on the playground for their lunch money because I was a girl and I knew that they thought that I wasn't going to be able to do it. And so all of them would be like rapping, and I just kind of sit and wait. And then I'd be like, hey, yo, I bet you I could destroy you right now. And they'd be like, no. And, I'm a jerk, so I would always make it a very public bet because the male ego is like huge. So then they're like, I can't get publicly sunned by a girl. And so then I would win. And so rapping for me was always my thing. But I think when I came into Berklee, I'm going to be real. I didn't feel like there was enough infrastructure and enough place. And some of my experiences kind of deterred me from doing the things that felt very natural to me. And on one hand, I feel I love my Berklee experience for all of the wealth of knowledge that I got, because like I'm a Joni Mitchell girl through and through. And so for me, being able to deliver in that way, being able to deliver like a classic song or play a jazz standard is a crucial skill. But I spent a lot of time writing projects that I knew were good. I knew they were good because they're technically good. I know how to write a good song. I went to school for it, right? And before that, felt like I could write a good song, but they didn't feel like me. And so with Oops and with all of the music that I'm kind of putting out forward, the real spiritual liberation is that I'm being fully myself. And so are there references to African spirituality? Yeah, all the time. In the whole thing, you can find them if you look for them. But with Oops, it's you say you want a revolution, say you want the truth and the light. Ha, you don't want it from a Black girl is one of those lines, right? Or it's the whole first verse of that Oops, and it's explicit, so I don't know if we can cuss on the live, so y'all gonna have to listen to it later. But that whole first verse is really about confronting the parts of myself and the systems that tell me that I have to be somebody's fancy thing, because it's not just whiteness, it's also the spaces we put Black women as artists. I felt like there were like 3 archetypes. Like either you're the neo soul girl with the head wrap and you're giving us spiritual. Like neo soul sis, she can give us spiritual, right? Or you could be like the rapper who's kind of half naked sometimes, or you could be like holy, you could sing gospel. Those were really, or like R&B princess. Those were like the only spaces and modalities. And I was kind of just like, I remember having a crisis even in my spiritual work and being like, I don't look like anybody's spiritualist to me. Like the Conj doctor is always somebody's old granddaddy in my head, or somebody's auntie, and being like, I'm about to wear Nikes and do this though. Like I'm really about to give you this good tea in the Nikes. And that's kind of the whole ethos of the art. So with the next project, with Oops and the things that I'm pushing forward, they're just like very honest. There's not a lot of code switching. So I'm not explaining to folks who don't speak African American vernacular English, and I don't plan on ever doing it because it's there. So Google it, look it up, talk to a friend, or just enjoy it. But it is what it is. And I think that's been the most liberating for me, to be able to create things that just feel like they're coming out of me instead of having to do that double veil filtering that I feel like so many artists have to go through.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really feel that. And I think that, it's coming into yourself as a human being first, right? As a
Mm-hmm.
spiritual being having a human experience, right? And then also adding the layer of as an artist and really finding your own voice and not trying to, like you said, do the double veil thing is super important. I think that, I'm sure our students right now are in a process of, there's so much, like there's like the whole coming into your like Instagram digital presence. Like they have like a whole other, and you and I are around the same age. So it's like we thought we were digital babies. They're like really,
Yeah.
to already brand themselves straight out the gate. So I think that, really finding your own voice and sticking with that and letting things come organically is so important. Uh, to that point, what is the drive behind your work, and what things are you currently working on that you want to share, you feel comfortable sharing?
The drive around my work is always, I feel very much like holding up a mirror to people and reflecting whatever it is that I see, even if that's beauty in other people. So particularly when I'm looking at Black folks, Black non-men, because my work isn't just with women. I certainly identify with womanism as a concept because I'm a Black woman. That's how I identify. But fundamentally, one of those things is that when you liberate folks at the intersections that you stand at and the intersections that we would consider beneath us, we are liberating everyone else. So my work, whether it's musical work, spiritual work, activist work, is fundamentally liberation work. And if it's not liberation centered at this point, I'm not really interested. I also think that aesthetics and art and music are liberation work, and they don't give us enough credit. And so you may see me do things that look light or present things with a lightness, and that's certainly very intentional, because I think that you can tell the truth in a way that is aesthetically pleasing and that people can receive. And so currently I released the Oops single. I've been writing a ton, so there is going to be a project that comes out. I'm not rushing it, largely because I want the visuals around that. And Corona cramped my style. I had a whole 2020 I had the gas. My foot was on the gas for 2020. I was coming for the girls next, truly. And then they were like, Miss Mamas, you're going to need to have a seat. And I was like, you know what? Fine. So it gave me the time to kind of reevaluate, but Oops is happening. A music video eventually for sure, and possibly a little lyric video. And then I've been, and we'll see, I might say it on the internet so then y'all can hold me accountable. Corona happened, right? And then I had all these dating apps, and I put in the dating apps, producers send me tracks because I was bored. And so I kind of flipped my dating apps, like my Tinder, my Hinge, and my Bumble, to like workspace. So now I have maybe like 40 or 50 tracks that producers have sent me on Hinge or on Bumble or on whatever little like Tinder dating app you have. And I kind of want to, after Corona is over, just go through the best ones and drop like a little EP of all my dating app, all my dating app records, because I was bored in the house bored, top lining. So I was like, yeah, I think, but then I have to talk to all of those people and be like, do you mind if I use your track for this? Thank you, Roger. Yeah, I thought it would be a cool little vibe because I feel like everyone is swiping now more than ever. And so I think I'm going to release that at some point too, just because it's funny to me. And it gives me room to stretch my muscles as a writer and to freestyle because it's very light. They're tracks, you just spit over them and that feels good. So yeah, that's my focus. And so it is always inherently like from my viewpoint, and then hopefully people who see themselves in me, because to touch on the social media thing, I had no idea how to present myself on social media. Like it really was my friends, my homies, who were more social media oriented than me, because I like to talk, as you can tell, but that's not the same as translating into a brand. And so that really did come kind of organically. And now when I look at my feed, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But it felt fair. Social media for me felt like throwing things against the wall and just kind of seeing what sticks, and then looking and being like, oh, they liked that. I can do more of that. Because it's weird to know how people perceive you. So those are the things. The Oops music video, record release. I keep saying EP, but it'll probably be longer. And then this dating app EP, just because I feel like it needs to happen.
Those are awesome. I love that concept. I love the dating app concept. I think that will go far. I think that will go
Thank
far.
you.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think the other projects are awesome as well. So I'm excited to hear all those. And I feel like they're all gonna have such different flavors. So that would be cool to hear. Um, Also, another question I had for you was, I know you spoke to one particular experience you feel has molded you, but what are some experiences you feel have molded you into the person that you are today, as the artist you are today?
Well, I'm looking at the chat right now, and like Linwood kind of foreshadowed you, because he was like, I met you as a kid on the Finding Our Folk tour in 2004. Interesting to know how that experience shaped you into the woman you are now. So I'll answer his question and also talk about that, because when Katrina happened, a bunch of folks in my extended kind of community of like, it's weird to call them elders now, but I guess they're my elders. They were the grown folks in my life. We're all activists. So like my godmother / cousin, Anasa Troutman, Linwood, a bunch of other people in my life, Omo, Moses in Boston, all organized this kind of tour of the Gulf Coast called Finding Our Folks. That was about rebuilding and community organizing and social justice. And that was 2004. So I must have been 9. How old are you in 4th grade? So that was kind of monumental for me. One, because musically, New Orleans, the entire Gulf Coast is full of so much. Like we had a second line band, and I just remember being like, I need a second line band when I wake up in the morning. Like that's what I need. I need a second line band, right? But then also just always having those ties connected for me. I was in a performing arts program called Pappy. Shout out to Miss Hilda Willis for running Pappy. And that's when we did the National Democratic Convention. It was the first time that I met Barack Obama, and he was still a senator. And we had the song that we sang was like, I stand on my history. I press through with my power, focused on my legacy. I sing about my history, power, and legacy. Let me show you history, power, and legacy. Which I remember being like, wow, that's hella dope, right? But then I had a solo. And my solo was so specific to like the work I do now. It was like, the gift I bring is from the past, a present held for everyone. I pass it on so it can last. I pass it on so it can last for the future. And I remember listening back to that and being like, this was about mediumship. This is about talking to dead people and then telling people what they said. This is about like telling stories that other people don't have access to through art. And so I think that for me, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by people who saw me, you know, and like gave me the space and the avenues to stand in who I was, even though I couldn't fully connect what it was that I was doing. So it's those experiences. It's having my family members go to listen to me when I was like, something ain't right. I had a lot of psychic experiences as a kid that was, you know, that were very interesting, and now looking at how revolutionary it was for my mother to facilitate that for me. My grandmother's house in Ohio. So my family is from Maple Heights, Ohio, which was a big stop on the Underground Railroad. So I've got family members on that side who literally were runaways, who left Georgia and were like, we made it past the Ohio River gang, and just like kicked it. Because I remember asking, like, why are we from Hamilton, Ohio? Why are we from Cleveland? That's so random. And then being like, oh, they came there on foot. Like they came to Ohio with the specific purpose of liberation. And the house that she lives in is maybe 150 years old, and the basement used to be the living room. And so everyone in my family, like it's normal, knows that my grandmother's laundry is in the basement, that there are dead white people who live in the basement. And they're kind of ornery and mean and maybe a little racist. And everyone in my family could see these ghosts and everyone knew they were there. And it was a common conversation. It wasn't strange. And so I grew up, they'd be like, SATAR'RRA, go get the laundry from downstairs. And I'd be like, I don't want to talk to the white people in the basement. I'm scared. Because I was maybe 7 and I was like, they don't look like they really deal with me. They're wearing some sort of like Victorian era situation, not really rocking with it. But now I think about how crazy it was. And my mom was like, okay, yeah, cool. Well, pray over yourself this way. They don't run anything. They're dead. You're alive. Go get the laundry and come back upstairs. Like that was the conversation. So mediumship and art and social justice, I could talk all day about the experiences, but really it's my community. My community provided me so much. And so now I just try to give it back and facilitate that for other folks.
Yeah, you are absolutely. And I feel it's really present in your digital presence, but also in the way that you speak and how you share your experiences. And yeah, I mean, those are incredible experiences. Those are very powerful. I want to hear also about some of your experiences at Berklee and like some of the lessons that you may have learned while being a student at Berklee and coming into yourself as an artist and all of that. I've seen so many amazing clips of what you've done at Berklee or what you did do while you
Oh my
stood.
God, there's evidence.
There's evidence. There's a lot of evidence on the internet. So you're definitely, you were in demand.
Berklee was a wonderful experience for me and an eye-opening experience for me for a few reasons. There is the ecosystem that is Boston. So we'll get into Berklee, but we got to talk about the ecosystem that's Boston because I grew up in Atlanta. Atlanta has its issues, but the one thing that is very present in Atlanta that I think folks working in Black traditions will talk about is Black people. There are Black people at all different levels of society. And so for me, it was not strange to see poor Black folks, middle-class Black folks, wealthy Black folks, teachers, lawyers, doctors, rappers, right? And there wasn't all of the Blackness for me did not have the greater quote unquote negative connotation that people have. And don't get me wrong, I'd visit family in the Midwest and be like, y'all racist. And Georgia certainly has its own particular type of racism. So when people ask me, are you from Georgia? Are you from Atlanta? I say, I'm from Atlanta, inside 285. I am from city of Atlanta, Fulton County, right? Because Georgia in itself still has crazy race politics, and Atlanta does too. But you find that there are folks that have to share space with Black folks, and so they know how, right? It's kind of a, you be over there, I'm gonna be over here type situation. Flourishing Black ecosystems, right? Watching my mother be a hairstylist with a bunch of Black women and have clients that were strippers and clients that were politicians in the same day. And getting to have all those conversations with Black women in particular about what was happening in their lives. So whole people, seeing myself as a whole and complete person. So I arrived at Berklee, a fully complete, intact Black girl with lots of opinions. And I arrived in Boston that way. And I just feel like people weren't ready. You know, it was a strange thing to see. And so Berklee is a school based on jazz music, which we know is a Black tradition. And I felt very strongly that there weren't the infrastructures in place to support particularly African-American students who were coming in. I found that in my own experience, and I found that in the experience of my peers. And so I felt it was very important that those conversations happened. And I didn't realize the strength that was my background in organizing, like Linwood was putting on, having gone on these things early. So Roger, my bad, because what I'm about to say, you're going to be like, girl, but I'm telling you, not really my bad because you're the president, so you had to take that L. Sorry. If it was somebody else, it would have been somebody else too, but that's your L. But I remember, um, I think they wanted to speak with Roger, and they were going to do a walkout. And I remember looking and hearing about this and being like, but that's not effective. Like, organizing wise, that's not effective. And everyone looked at me and kind of said, what? And I said, if you want to speak with someone, why would you leave? Just go sit in at his office. If he's in there, he will have to come speak to you. Like, you don't have to go to class, but why would you walk out? It is smarter to sit in. If you leave, how are you going to speak to him? And everybody was like, and so it was supposed to be covert, but you know, RAs are snitches. So I don't know who snitched on me, but I'm just letting you know that's fine. Somebody snitched. And Roger was like, please do not sit in my office. Just come have a conversation with me. And I was like, see, sit-ins work. The threat of sit-ins work. You know what I'm saying? So I gathered a bunch of homies just because I felt like it wasn't just my conversation to have. I had things to say, but more importantly than centering what it is that I had to say, it was like, what do we have to say as a collective? And so we started having these conversations with Roger. And I made a list of, after everyone kind of expressed their concerns, I made a list of demands that I thought were going to be helpful to move things forward. So that turned into Black Lives Matter concert and a host of other things that we see kind of throughout the organization, the school now. And then always being in activist spaces. Like, there wasn't going to be a protest that I wasn't at. There wasn't going to be a conversation that I wasn't in. And those experiences were really helpful because they helped me flex my muscles as an activist, as a creative. Producing was one of the greatest gifts of my life, to kind of look and be able to see all of the wealth of talent that was there and be able to organize people toward a mission was beautiful with the Black Lives Matter concert. And we sold it out and we had overflow in the Steve Heck room. And that was really nice to see. And to make a cast full of Black folks, because I feel like that hadn't been done and we needed those spaces. And to be blatant in my prioritizing of Black folks too. I think at the time people were very kind of touchy about, for me to be like, no, it's Black History Month, so I want to put as many Black people in this as possible. And people being like, what? I don't understand. And me being like, it's a Black Lives Matter concert, so I'm going to put as many Black people in this as possible. And having people very confused as to why that was something to prioritize. And now I think, like I said, years later, you can see the progress, because there are still people that have a problem with that, but certainly much less. But organizing, and then all the concerts. I mean, Victor Bailey was my teacher for years. He was my bass professor. And so his life is a testimony to Black liberation in art. Like, his existence was a gift to me. And so our space shared, he really felt like family to me. You know, we were together for years and I didn't really switch. Because we would have conversations. And I remember truly, he was the first person that knew that I wasn't going to be a career bass player, ironically. He was the first person who looked at me. Maybe the third, I know, rest in peace to Victor, always. Elevated ancestor though, play his records a ton. He looked at me maybe second semester because I hated practicing. Anybody in the bass department who knows me knows that the last thing that I wanted to do was practice bass. I like to play bass. I like to be on stage, you know what I mean? And I like to write in the studio with bass, but I hated shedding bass. I just was like, And it was Victor Bailey who looked at me maybe second semester and said, SATAR'RA, you're not practicing your scales. So what are you doing? Because I know you're not lazy. So what are you doing? When you're supposed to be practicing, what are you doing? And I kind of like pulled out my thumb drive and pulled out all these demos that I had written. And we listened to like maybe 3 or 4. And he goes, SATAR'RA, if I could produce and write like this, I wouldn't play bass. And at the time I was like high on my like Black girl womanism high horse. So I received a lot of sexism at Berklee. Y'all already know who you are. I'm not gonna call you out, but y'all tried me. If you're watching this, you tried me, all of y'all. And I was so determined to be a bass player because everybody didn't think a girl could do it. Not even because I loved it. I was willing to play bass just to prove that I could, just to show up in the room and be like middle fingers up, Like that was the energy, but that wasn't generative. It wasn't creative for me. And so Victor really giving me the space and the permission to produce. So I wrote a song called Swing and Love Affair that like I still have the demo somewhere that he produced it. It's got a solo on it that he played on it. And so we just went through all my demos and he like recorded with me and played with me. And that for me was a watershed moment because it was like, oh, here's a bass player that I have idolized and a musician that I've idolized. And we talked about his life in Philadelphia and like what it was to be the Black man outside the gig. And we talked about his health and his spirituality as he was not feeling well, praying for him and making sure that the things in his space were done well, right? Making sure that he could have the things that he needed and being able to bring kind of like a nurturing energy to someone. Like I said, it felt like family. So when he passed, it was really impactful for me. But I also always felt like, and I still feel this way, like he's around because I'll have these little moments where like, you know, I'll be in my room and like I'll have my thing on shuffle and like his songs will come up, or like I'll be out, you know, and it'll be Bass Player Magazine. I'll flip to it. It'll be the page where it's talking about Victor or his acoustic bass. I have his model of the Kingsman acoustic bass that he had. And like, it's in the little altar space that I keep for him. And recently I looked over and I was like, the strings need to be changed. And I just like knew, and I knew that he would be like, you have not changed the strings on my bass. So yeah, Berklee was, there's so many experiences I could go on, but yes, it was dope. Good and bad dope. Made me who I was dope.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, it sounds it's a range of emotions. It's a range of emotions, and so much goes into that experience. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you made the place better by you being there. So it's that, yes, and Roger co-signs, and Roger co-signs. So thank you.
It made me better too. I think for
Made
sure.
me better.
Oh.
Because I'm one of those people who comes from outside the Beltway in Georgia.
I know, bless you. That's I know, but you do good, all things considered. You do real good, all things considered.
But we bonded over our roots. And
yeah, because normally I don't talk to people from outside the perimeter. I'd be like, oh no. Nice to see you. But Roger is the exception. Roger is the exception to that rule. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna ask one more question for you, but I'm actually going to save your answer for the very end so you can bless us as we usher out. I want you to think about a piece of advice you'd give to our students. And in the meantime, I'm going to open up the floor for students to ask questions. You can drop them in the chat, or you can go ahead and ask, you unmute yourself. But this is a moment to ask SATAR'RA any questions that you have for her. So definitely take advantage.
Yes, Victor, we miss him.
So.
No one has questions. They scared.
What kind of friends do you have?
Oh, weird ones, baby. I have fantastic but unique individuals. And so my advice on friends is to be yourself. Because when I started being myself for real, I found that there were so many other people who were my same tribe in my same community. So all of my friends, shout out to the homies, are creators or artists. I think the majority of my friends make music. They're all kind of spiritual in their own way. They all have their own spiritual practices that they integrate, and really they're all visionaries. They all see me or see things and like project it long into the future. And so I have friends and I have collaborators. And that's really, really lovely. So I've got a good group of friends, dope ones. How do I incorporate politics into my song without it sounding cheesy or bad? Ooh, well, I would listen back to some of my old stuff and be like, that was kind of cheesy. And I forgive myself for being cheesy because you have to get through the cheese to get to the real stuff. But I think that you're honest. I think the way that you do it is that you do it. Like I am inherently politicized. And I learned that very early, that for me to be honest was going to be politicized. So the first thing is to consider like your lens, your position. You got to analyze y'all are young. I'm dropping a lot on you, but like take it and soak it in, and you'll hear me later or now. But you have to look at yourself and analyze your intersections and your privilege to know who you are, and then also learn what the expectation is of you. Like I said, me coming to Boston was the first time that I realized that the lens through which I saw myself was, unfortunately, and then I could flip that to my advantage, but it was at first unfortunate, not the lens that people inherently saw when they see me, or not the lens that people were trained to. Because intuitive people who see with their heart space, artists, creatives, those of us who are sensitive, emotional beings, tend to look at people and see them for their humanity first, or see them really, I would argue, not even for their humanity, for their divinity, because I think there's divinity in everybody. So if you're a creative, you see the divine in folks. So you got to see that in yourself, and then you got to look and be like, where do these people got me messed up? I'm filtering myself because we're on a live. Where do these people have me confused? And then like, that's the space that I started writing from, being like, oh, this is where you're unclear. How do I clarify? And the politics became a part of that, because generally where people are unclear about Black womanhood is in the social, political, artistic space. They unclear on a whole lot. But you let it sound cheesy and you be honest. And then I would say listen to a lot of hip hop, because listen to a lot of hip hop allows you to really, words are rhythm. And so sometimes you're trying to say something really tough and you're trying to give the girls soft melodic melody, and it's possible, and I like that too. But listen to hip hop artists and the ways that they talk about politics, because there's a long history of that, and making it sound fly.
Chantel, did you want to ask a question directly?
Yeah, you know me. I can't ever put my questions into words for some reason. First of all, you are just awesome. I'm starting at Berklee in the fall, and I'm high-key jealous that I can't go to school with you. We would have been vibing, but it's okay. I'm gonna listen to your music, because I'm actually, this question is a kind of a follow-up. So you said earlier that you sort of, there's a way to take the truth and put it into your music and paint it in an aesthetic way, and there's a way to make it palatable to your audience, because obviously with music you only have like a couple of minutes to really shed light on the issues that you care about. And I guess I'm just wondering, how do you take these really, some of these topics can be dense, and a lot of them are so complex. Like I have no problem with like having a whole debate about the issues that I care about, specifically social justice. I could write you a whole dissertation, but like I could go on and on. But like, how do you take these really grand topics and like put them into poetic language without losing the essence of the issue of what you're trying to say? You know what I mean?
Oh, that's such a good question. Thank you. I feel like I wrestle with that all the time, but that goes back to honesty, and it goes back to like, you can watch the Toni Morrison interview if you haven't, where they ask her why all the characters in her book are Black, and why she chooses to write the way that she writes. And Toni Morrison for me was a revelation in that. I've read a ton of Toni Morrison books, but I write like myself, and I reference my experiences. And also you use the words that like, I don't try to be palatable. I love aesthetics. I'm a fashion girl. I'm a makeup girl. I'm a hair girl. I grew up in the beauty salon. So my first healing modality, or like communication thing that I ever saw, was watching my mom, like I said, take these Black women into the salon, and they may come in whatever they got on them. So you feeling crazy because you got a divorce, or you feeling crazy because your business is not going well. And then you get your hair done, baby, and you're coming out this thing like, I'm promising I'm bringing it to your question, right? So for me, aesthetics was like a liberatory space. Like, first things first is I try to be fly, and fly for me. Because when you're fly, people talk to you. You got to really look like, and I feel like so many Black artists, jazz artists, you look at bebop, with fashion being like the way that they were communicating this kind of counterculture resistance along with the art. Fashion, aesthetics, and music have always gone hand in hand. So the first thing is that generally I look like somebody that people want to talk to. And I don't go talk to people, and when they come talk to me, I'm honest. and I'm like brutally honest. And I know Roger knows this. Anybody who knows me knows that if you ask me a question, you're going to get a direct answer. And it may not be the one that you want to hear, right? So for me, I try not to say too much because there's the pressure to perform when you talk about social justice. So I think about like verse 2 talks about my Berklee experience. It's like, remember when I went to jazz school on you, then got up and went straight to grad school on you? See, I paid my dues, yeah, baby. I did them Boston winners, so I could bring you bars. It's been proven that I'm the illest. Yeah, baby, I'm a star. You can't tell me that you don't feel this, which is a Prince reference. Baby, I'm your God. See, my music's your new religion. I've been working Wonga and Jarg all up in my kitchen. They call me the root doctor, hi John, all up in my, can you say titties on the internet? Sorry, right? But that's it. So it's pulling together all of the pieces of who I am in a way that's like a big flex. And really, you just flex on them. You don't explain the flex. And then that's usually enough for people to call you back because they're like, I can't believe she had the audacity. And you'd be like, that's me, the audacity. And so I would worry less about being palatable and worry more about formulating your stance and then give it to them. And the people who rock with you will be like you looked at me and you was like, gang, gang. So it happens like that. And I don't worry about nobody else.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
What made you continue to finish school knowing you wouldn't end up pursuing a career your parents paid for? And also, which artist allowed you to be you or understand your calling? Oh, these are good questions. My mama made me finish school. So my mom, I always say that my degrees were a gift to my mother. And I love them. They were a gift to me. And I have those pieces of paper and they allow me so much mobility. So I can't say that I had the foresight to be like, I need to finish school because it's going to allow me all this mobility. I had the foresight to listen to my mama. However, when I first moved to LA, having my undergrad and my master's meant that I was paid to do things that felt easy for me. So it allowed me the room to develop my own artistic space. So my mom made me, but it paid off in that I could like teach. I taught a choir for the first year that I lived in LA. You know, I taught high school music theory. I did like very Berklee, you know, music theory centered work. And I had the range for it and it was easy, you know? And then when you walk in a room and you say you went to Berklee, people put respect on your name. So I think that having my degree, again, understanding my intersections, because people try you if you, any intersection you stand at, but being Black and female, people look at you and go, I'm sorry, are you here to take out the trash? I'm the producer, but get out my seat, bro, right? But literally, people go, I'm sorry, are you looking for someone? Are you lost? No, but you are, because you don't know that this is my session, right? So, but the piece of paper gets you in rooms. Then people go, oh, well, she went to Berklee. I hate that that has to be the thing, but it's a good little flex if you got it. What artist allowed me to be you or understand my calling? We shout out all of the neo soul folks that were around my life in the Atlanta early 2000s. So much love to India Ari. There's not, I know her personally because my aunt works with her and she's a revelation. She was the first woman that I saw close up on stage. My first bass teacher, Kari Simmons, played bass for her for years. Like that is my musical community. The members of India's band, Anthony David in Atlanta, shout out to him. Donnie, who has a wonderful record that was before its time called The Colored Section. And then hip hop artists. I grew up listening to a lot of West Coast hip hop because Roger Troutman did California Love, which I think plays every single day on the radio here in LA. And that's family for me. So I grew up with tons of Tupac. So the way that he was like phrasing these kind of topics for me, my mom is young. I was born in 94. My mom is, I won't tell how old she is, but she's not old. She's younger than everybody's mama. So, but still old enough where she don't want me to tell y'all on the internet. But my music was like Notorious B.I.G., Mint Condition. You know, like, yeah, it was Mint Condition. It was Gerald Levert, that kind of Midwest sound, and then lots of gospel. And then modern, I love Megan Thee Stallion. I love Cardi B. I love these women who are rapping, and I love Rhapsody. Shout out to some of my other female MCs at Berklee and organizers. Much love to Dom Jones, who is an inspiration to me all the time. Dom's music is phenomenal. And then like Tega, these are like Berklee artists, Sarthi. These are people who I went to school with who consistently inspire me. My homie Attilio, so many great writers in the songwriting department. And so they allowed me to be me because I could see little parts of myself reflected in them. And then visual artists and writers. We talked about Toni Morrison. We talked about, I love mystical realism as a whole. So like a magical realism. So Gabriel Garcia Marquez with 100 Years of Solitude. I'm a book girl for inspiration. So I see myself in a lot of books.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
you so much for sharing. I think that, does anyone else have any last minute burning questions before we get the piece of advice? Yes, Bukola, you can go ahead.
Yeah. First, I wanted to say thank you so much for spending like the time with us today. I really appreciate it. My question for you is, how do you have the confidence to go out and do your activism and to go and talk to Roger in his office, kind of thing? Because I know for me too, like especially just in class when we talk about certain things, when I don't agree with things, or if somebody says the N-word who shouldn't be, I'm too scared to say anything, and I don't feel like I know enough to say stuff. So how do you have the confidence to stand up for what you believe in?
Okay, so there's two things here. I'm gonna try to keep it concise because I know we're winding down. But the first thing is, consider whether it's not that you don't have the confidence, but that you're tired. And this is a conversation I have with Black women specifically because the world hands us a lot of labor. You are born into a system that tells you that you are meant to do labor. And so the way that people deal with you is as if the labor is yours. So I remember being in certain courses at Berkeley. First of all, it wasn't that I spoke up every time because I'm tired. So the first thing is, Black women, we are tired. Black folks are tired, right, as a whole. So there would be times where something problematic was said in a course, and I don't want you to feel like every time somebody said somebody crazy, I was the girl that was like, you're crazy, that's wrong, because I don't have the energy for that, because some days I am just wanting to rest, or really systematically not wanting to be penalized by white privilege, because my professor had an authority over me that I may not have had the energy to go through the rigmarole of doing. So it's about energy management and taking very good care of yourself. Every fight is not your fight. And so there would be times where I would have to bow out of something because I knew, and it took me a long time, because at Berkeley I burnt out, I think, very heavily because I tried to have my hands in everything. So the first part is acknowledging that sometimes it's not lack of confidence, it's genuinely exhaustion, because it takes you about 5 times more energy than some of your peers to show up in this space, right? And this is the reality for a lot of us, but to show up in this space, to be respected in the space, to deal with the people who may not respect you in the space and persevere forward. So you have to manage your energy, care for yourself, know when to not do the labor of explaining to people who don't need to be explained to. Then you surround yourself with people who look like you. And that doesn't just mean other Black folks or other Black women, although having a community of Black women in my life is my strongest gift. And I really keep Black non-men in my circle because I like to see myself reflected in my folks. But you keep people around you who uplift you and validate you and support you. And then you do the same for yourself and then outwardly. Because once you get that fundamental thing of like self-love, self-respect, then you can look and say, where can I be of service? I'm not of service every single place. And also knowing your value, because I will be of service somewhere, and because of all of the systems that be, people will try to pay me less than I'm worth or try to take credit for the work that I've done. And so it's confidence, but it's really strategy. It's about being like, okay, where am I going to be effective? And then the wins give you the confidence to move forward. And then like, I listen to lots of Cardi B and rap in the mirror, like that, until I feel good every day. Bye, Roger.
Bye, Roger. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, good to see everyone. Take care. Thank you so much, SATAR'RA.
Of course, thank you for coming.
Thank you. All right. So I think we're getting close to time, but I want to give you the floor for your piece of advice, or multiple if you have them, because I know that the students are they want to hear your gems.
My advice
Yeah.
for y'all: be yourself, like unabashedly. And when you do it, people are going to be shocked. Okay, this is my advice. People tell you, because I was like, what conversation don't people have that I wish somebody would have had with me at Berklee? And this is about art, but it's about life that I found. People say when you do what you're supposed to be doing and you're standing in your truth and everything is the way that it's supposed to be, it's going to be great. You're going to get all these accolades. Everybody's going to love you. And like, first of all, there's never a situation where everybody loves you. There are going to be people who dislike you. And if no one dislikes you, you are spreading yourself too thin and you're being dishonest. Especially, hear me closely, if you stand at intersections that we have been taught to dislike. So if you are queer, if you are a woman, if you are Black, if you are Latinx, if you are something other than this very tiny, narrow box that we hold, someone's going to dislike you without knowing you. And we allow all of that to limit the artistic and spiritual and human to human space that we can take up, and art we can create, and therefore like liberation that we can create. So you really have to be yourself authentically, stay prayed up, stay spiritually protected, whatever your practices are, and just be ready for people to look at you like you have to be a light so bright in the room that people are kind of uncomfortable. I'm very aware that sometimes I go places and I make people uncomfortable. That ain't got nothing to do with me. Only pay attention to the people who are made more comfortable by your presence. Because when you're like a big light in the room, it's too bright for other people. But then you look at some people and it's like, I'm glowing, right? Boom, I'm giving you like Pokemon heart chakra realness. Like I'm beaming. And someone else is like Care Bears and they're like, that's the only person that matters in that room. It's not the 50,000 other people who don't get it, because they'll catch up. That's really my advice. Be yourself, take care of yourself, find your spiritual grounding, make the art that is you, and don't worry about it. Fully sit. If you're a songwriting major, if you're a composition major, make the art and sit in the class. And when they're like, I don't get it, be like, do some more research, bro, because everybody has to expand. Everyone has to expand. And so be yourself and let other people expand to match you. Come in real big, come in real loud with too much jewelry on. You see what I'm saying? Come in with the big hair, do the most, and then have people be like, and you be like, you too could flex. We could all just together. And then the people who are like, you know what, maybe I'll wear sequins on a Tuesday. That's your people. You feel me? The people who are like, girl, I was thinking about that song that you wrote and I feel like it. That's your people. And I just have found that it's always created more room for other people. It's never blocked anybody out unless they didn't need to be there to begin with. And then that's fine. That's really it. And take care of yourself and drink water and don't live off of Dunkin' Donuts iced coffees exclusively like I did. Although y'all aren't on campus, so y'all are having a different experience. So I'm interested to actually learn from y'all in a little bit how that goes, because I don't know.
Thank you. You just gave a word, a sermon, a sermon. Chantel, I agree. I'm in love with this energy. Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I felt impacted as well. I know the students are feeling. Thank you for sharing your amazing energy and words with us today. Yes, Jeremiah said you're awesome. You are awesome. So thank you for joining us for our fourth summer artist series. We're in the fourth week of 5 week. Can't believe it. And
wow, y'all know I was a 5-week teacher, right?
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say it. Yeah. So you know all about it. You know all about it. But
yeah.
Yeah, is there a specific place that students can follow you or kind of learn what you're up to? Your Instagram, is that a good place for people to reach out if they have other questions or?
Yes, for sure. So my Instagram is I am SATAR'RA, all lowercase, although I don't think it matters on Instagram, no apostrophes or anything because Instagram algorithm does not like to see me shine. So it's all I am SATAR'RA, like that. Perfect. Thank you. Absolutely, that's the best place to follow me. Email me. It's info@satarra.com if you need me. If you DM me, my DMs are kind of overrun, so I might not see you, but absolutely email me. Or like DM me with and be like, I was in the 5-week thing, and then I'll keep my extra eyes out because I know some of y'all are Instagram folks. And I got a Twitter too, but Twitter is for wild behavior. So if you follow me on Twitter, just be prepared to see all type of things. All right.
Thank you so much.
That's what it's at.
All right.
Of course.
Bye, SATAR'RA. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for joining.
Bye.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.